Is here today, and we are going to discuss community survival, preparedness, and the need for support in Kentucky. So if you can hear me, if you can see me there as well, please make sure you let us know in the chat. And there's always going to be a little bit of a lag here, so we'll just kind of give everybody a minute to get caught up. You want to go ahead and say hello to everybody, I guess?
Hi, my name's Bear. I'm a straight white male. I live in the woods in Oklahoma. I talk at Sideways iPhones. I have 4 businesses and 2 ministries. I teach people the fine art of how to not die. I think preparedness is cool, and I'm happy to be here tonight. Thank you for having me, Magic Prepper.
Well, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. And the Sideways iPhone thing, that's a real thing, you know, because when you spend so much on a phone, you might as well use it as a camera, right? There it is right now. Well, thanks everybody for being here. Thank you for being here as well, Bear. And I just want everyone to be aware that we are going to discuss things related to preparedness. We're going to discuss the need for community networking and all that good stuff. But a big part of what we're doing tonight is also trying to support the relief and recovery effort over in Kentucky after all of the devastation there from the recent storms. So what I will kind of just start the conversation off by saying is that we are going to take any super chats or anything like that you guys feel like giving tonight and send them directly to Grindstone Ministries, which is a nonprofit organization, a construction ministry that helps rebuild people's lives after a disaster. And then we also suggest that you guys donate directly to Grindstone Ministries, just because YouTube always likes to take their share when it comes to things like super chats and stuff like that. And I'll make sure to post plenty of links in the chat so everybody can donate how they feel. Like I said, it's not a requirement. I don't want you guys to feel like you have to donate. You being here is good support as well. But we are trying to do what we can to take care of the people out there. So with that being said, you know, why don't you at least maybe give everybody a quick rundown as to what Grindstone Ministries does, some of the things that you guys work on, even when it's not related to specifically like disaster relief, and let everyone know kind of like where their money ends up and like how it's utilized.
Sure, I appreciate that. I've been doing disaster relief since Hurricane Katrina, myself personally. That's actually what got me into prepping, because I was like, oh, look at all these feds. They're terrible at their job. I could probably do it. So we did. Grindstone had its first deployment before it had a name about almost 3 years ago. Hurricane Michael, Panama City Beach, Florida. We went down there and we fed a bunch of people. 3-day deployment, had $3,000 budget. 33 people showed up. We fed 3 semi-trailer loads of food, and then we went home again. And by the hand of the Father, we still had $3,000 in our bank. I don't, still to this day, have no idea logically how that happened. And then that grew from there. We went back a second time to Hurricane Michael, and we realized pretty quickly, oh, we have all of these badasses at construction who want to be a part of what we do. By the way, I don't know if I can say bad words or not at your channel. So
I think we're okay. I've had the angry prepper here before, so.
Okay, fair enough. So all right, I'll refrain. Okay, so we had all these awesome people with these awesome skills, and I have a construction background, heavy construction background as well. And we felt convicted to just start doing construction ministry. So kind of like if you're familiar with Habitat for Humanity,
Yep.
Think of them as the regular army. We're like the special forces. We get in, we do the job, we GTFO, we get back out again. We are also 100% privately funded. And so with every disaster, and currently I am sitting in the middle of a federally declared national disaster emergency zone, right? The full weight of the federal government has been brought to bear on this situation, and nobody's here and nobody's doing anything, which is highly indicative of federal government involvement. So what we do is initially you have what's called a relief phase, and that's when people need food, water, clothing, fuel, shelter, heat, over-the-counter medicines, prescription medicines, especially if, you know, they need insulin as a diabetic, or blood pressure meds or something like that. All their worldly needs. What do you need right now because your house has been destroyed? We were working on a lady's property yesterday that they found her personal effects, some of her personal effects, 200 miles away in Indiana. I'm in Kentucky. And they found some of her stuff, like her ID and her wallet and stuff, 200 miles away in Indiana. So, yeah, and that's a big challenge for us as preppers because, hey, man, we stockpile stuff, right? Well, all your stuff is gone. And so that's the relief effort. Getting people their immediate needs, food, water, shelter, fuel, heat, medications, things of that nature. Finding a place for them to live temporarily. And then within usually 30 days or so, you shift into what's called recovery. And recovery is, okay, all of the desperate, broken people, we've found them. We've found all the ones that want to be found, because that's a whole nother thing. We found all the ones that want to be found. Now we need to start rebuilding. And so this storm happened on the 12th of December. So just about three and a half weeks ago. And we are now going into the recovery phase here. And so we are pulling off of this site Friday morning. Tomorrow we're going to rest, refit, clean this volunteer fire department that we're in, return it to them as good or better as we got it. And I'm going to go home to Oklahoma for a couple of weeks. And then we're going to come back here, and we're working on at building at least one house for a woman who had 9 people on property and unfortunately lost 5 of them, 5 fatalities on that property. So that's what we do with the donations. We don't pay anybody. We don't pay subcontractors. We don't, I don't have a jet that I'm trying to fly to Africa and preach the word to the heathens. Like, I don't have a Lambo. Like, I use my personal truck for this. Those that know me know what my truck looks like. I shot a video on it. It's the one that's dragging equipment all over Western Kentucky right now. And so these donations go directly to the people that need it. And for things like fuel, equipment rentals. We had to rent a 12,000-pound off-road forklift to help lift the dude's house back onto the foundation. That's where these donations go. We had another guy who was asking us if we could pick the scrap metal out of the debris so that he could take the scrap to the county dump to get some money out of it, because FEMA had told him he's going to get $0 for his house. And so instead I said, hey man, how about I just buy the scrap from you? And I gave him a very, very good deal on scrap metal, because nobody should have to pick through the rubble of their house for scrap metal to go come up with some gas money and some grocery money. So that's what we do with the money, man. And for those that are new to me, new to Grindstone, you can go check out the Bear Independent channel, or you can put in the YouTube search bar, Bear Independent Grindstone, Grind Stone. And every video from every deployment we've done, you can find videos on that. We've deployed 24 times in the last 33 months. And so I would encourage you, if you're new to us, go check our fruit. We're not full of shit. We're actually doing this stuff. And there's lots of documentation for that.
Yeah, no, that's what I think a lot of people need to be made aware of. One thing that you brought up when explaining what it is you guys work on is how often you find people who aren't being taken care of by the federal government, right? And so through some of this work that you guys are doing out there, like, what have you learned in regards to that when it comes to people concerned about their own preparedness with disasters,
Okay, so first of all, don't have all your eggs in one basket, because sometimes your basket ends up 200 miles away.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between storms. Hurricane Michael was 88 miles wide. And so Hurricane Michael could have, and probably did, destroyed a bunch of MAGs, mutual assistance groups, multiple nodes, multiple, cache points, spider points. I'm sure if I was operating in that area, I would have had multiple areas that were demolished by that hurricane, versus a tornado where the east side of the road can be non-existent, but the west side of the road is fine, right? Yeah. Or, house 1 is gone. House 2, missing 2 shingles. House 3 is half destroyed. House 4 is gone. So it depends on the type of disaster, but the overarching lesson is don't have all your eggs in one basket. Even if, if all I've got 14 MREs, okay, put 4 here, 5 there, and 5 there. Split it up.
Right.
The next that I see all the time, I don't know why people don't have radios, but get a freaking radio and learn how to use it. At least know what the weather channels are on your radio, and simple open source frequencies like FRS, GMRS, and MERS. Like FRS 462.725 is wattage limited to 25 watts. Well, your Baofeng only goes to 5 to 8 watts. And you know what? Yep. You can talk, depending on the topography, 5, 6, 10 miles, depending on the topography, on FRS 22. Because commo doesn't work after a disaster, because all the cell towers are destroyed, all the power's off, no power, no commo. And so if you still want to get weather updates, if you want to talk to your people, get a freaking radio and learn how to use it. It's super frustrating to me. You may have noticed it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, because
I can tell.
People are like, oh yeah, I'm into prepping. I'm like, cool. Did you bring your radio? No. Gosh, dang, man. How am I supposed to talk to you? You don't have a radio. I can see 3 radios from where I'm sitting right now. So that's another big one with disaster. And then, everything we do is based upon volunteer labor. And if you're going to live out of your bug out bag, if that's your plan, like when the world ends, I'm going to bug out. Cool. You should come bug out with Grindstone. Bring your bug out bag and come live on site out of your bug out bag and try it in the closest thing to an austere environment you're going to find. When disasters first hit, there's no electricity, there's no commo, there's oftentimes no running water, and then therefore no sewage. Because of all of that, there's no fire, EMS, or public safety, right? And so crime goes up. There's no fuel because there's no electricity to get the fuel out of the ground at the pumps. There's none of that. A hot meal is like the best thing ever. So it's an actual austere environment. And so you can come operate in an austere environment with the safety net of Grindstone out of your bug out bag, that if you make a mistake, we're not going to let you die, while doing something awesome to bless somebody else. And so you're getting the training in, you're testing your systems, and you're being a blessing to somebody else. So that's another thing. We hear all the time, like, I've got a 97-pound inch bag. Cool. You ever use anything in it? Nope. Okay. Well, then you have probably 67 pounds too much stuff in your inch bag.
Right.
So I'll let you.
And when you talk about those kinds of things, then it brings another idea to mind, is when you're talking about disaster relief efforts, and you're talking about these victims of the disaster, the ones who have lost everything. And obviously that could happen to any of us as well. Like you said, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But if someone has lost everything, what would you say is like the number one thing on their mind that they need or want, like in the immediate? Because I would say that that's going to be a similar thought that people will have anytime there's an emergency crisis,
So that's a great question. And if you are brand new to prepping, or maybe you're not very far down the path, these are the types of things that you should prioritize for yourself. If you've been in the game for a while, I make what we literally call refugee buckets. Okay. Like handouts for other people that we love or people that we happen upon. It depends on your climate. Like I know right now it's stupid cold where you are, right?
Yeah.
Versus say South Florida, it's probably not as cold there. But generally speaking, a way to get warm, water, right? You got to have water, and a way to purify it, or a way to boil it, which comes down to fuel. But water, some type of calories, and like low calories you don't have to mess with. Like, hey, look, it's a number 10 can of Bush's beans, right? Basic prepper meals is boil water or heat stuff in can, right?
Yeah.
So calories that you can eat right now, water that you can drink right now, shelter. Wool blankets are awesome. Space blankets, that the heavy mylar, the heavy ones, not the cheap Chinese ones, are awesome. A Bic lighter and some emergency candles goes a really long way. Things of that nature. And so it's really kind of the refugee take on Dave Canterbury's 5 C's of survival. You know, cutting tool, combustion, cordage, container, cover. Cover, right, is going to be your blanket. It'll be your survival blanket. It'll be a way to get out of whatever just happened to you. You know, my house is gone and it's now snowing or raining. Dude, you need to get out of the elements, right? Some type of cover. And not just my house is gone, but my car's gone too. And my neighborhood's gone. And in many cases, you know, all the trees are down. Nobody's coming in to get you, and you're not getting out to get out either. So there's a lot of that. Well, I'll just bug out. Probably not. No, you won't. But anyway, the basic 5 C's. Irish Rebel. Holy cow. That's a huge super chat. So,
yeah.
Sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. But it's the 5 C's, but applicable to like a refugee style situation, right? Cutting tool, combustion, cordage, container, cover. But I don't put cutting tools in refugee buckets because I don't want desperate people getting stabby and have supplied them the stabby weapons. So
have certain ideas, right?
Yes.
You know, I do really quick want to say thank you to some of those who have donated through Super Chat so far. I know the Survival Buzz, thank you so much. We had Chicken Farmer Plus, We Are Hammer, Commander Corvus, Corex, Nevermore, and then Irish Rebel just came in. And man, like what a huge impact you guys are all making right now. I mean,
it's huge.
I really appreciate everybody supporting what's going on here because like what you'll see, if you do go to Bear's channel over at Bear Independent, you'll see the video evidence of what they're working on the ground there. They're actually there, boots on the ground, putting relief into people's hands directly. And one thing that and I'm sure you can comment on this, Bear, but one thing I definitely caution people about is donating money to some of these large nonprofit entities. So often it never gets spent on the disaster that they're using as a campaign in order to raise funds, right? That's a commonality, I would assume.
Bro. Bro. Most of the big disaster relief organizations were out here for the first week or so after the storm. And their equipment never left the parking lot. Take that from me. Their equipment never left the parking lot. So, and it's not to say that like, oh, hey, look at us, we're special, but my stuff is covered with mud. Like, my machine is a wreck right now. My truck is a wreck right now. We've been out getting after it. And all these big organizations, even if, I'll give you another example, even if they mean well, Samaritan's Purse was out here providing hot meals in the parking lot of a Baptist megachurch. You got to come pick up the food. How the hell are people going to come pick up the food? The city is destroyed. There's no vehicles. Your house is 300 yards away and you don't know where your car is. The East Marshall Fire Department water tower, 150 foot up in the air, has a Volkswagen bug-sized dent in the top of it because a car hit it 150 feet up in the air. So nobody's coming to your parking lot, right? So rather than going out and engaging with the people, they hole up in their parking lots because that's where it's safe and comfortable. And so we do the opposite of that. We do our best to go out into the people. And this is something I learned from the Reverend Gilbert Abreu at Night Runners Mobile Crisis Response, who is the first crew that we deployed with back in Florida in 2018. And you got to go to where the people are. The people are not going to come to you, right? You don't drive halfway across the country to sit in the damn parking lot. That's stupid. So there have been a lot of big ministries out here and a lot of big NGOs out here that haven't done much or haven't done much at all. There's definitely an Instagram crowd of the look at us. We showed up, we took some pictures, and then we went back and sat at the hotel or sat at the church and talked about how good it made us feel to go help. And that shit's really, really annoying. The same thing, like American Red Cross. They're out here doing, blood drives. They're not doing blood drives because they need the blood for the disaster. They're doing blood drives because people are here and they need the blood for other stuff.
Right.
I mean,
and people are willing to do it suddenly.
Right. Can you knock them? Like, I'm not saying that they're out of line for doing that, but to your point of the raising funds to be used for other things, like there's a lot of that around, storm response, disaster work, all of that. It's like, hey, look at us. We're doing great things out here. For the hour a day that I allow you to see. Like, not us, man. I start my videos before the sun comes up, and I close them after the sun has gone down every time I do one, just to show you, hey, we've been out here doing this all damn day. And that's why we all look like shit, because we're exhausted, man.
Well, that, the proof is in the pudding, they say, right? But I mean, you can't keep clean hands if you're actually out there doing the work. And that's definitely something that, I caution people about. I've seen it happen before. I've seen charitable organizations, not necessarily misuse funds, but just not place them towards where the intended purpose was. And growing up in Florida with hurricane season as a regular annual event, I can tell you, like, I've been affected by storms. My house was never destroyed or anything like that, but I've never once had a large nonprofit or federal entity once like touch my hand or hand me anything. You know what I mean? So, and we got some other great super chats that just came through. So, thank you, Sparky Badger, Alternative Homesteading. Thank you so much. And KRF, thank you so much for that. And like I said, all these will be going directly to Grindstone Ministries. And there is a direct link that you guys are more than welcome to use as well, as Google does like to take their cut, of course, but we will make sure that the money goes to where it's supposed to go. And that's one thing we can say here on this live stream versus what you can do, when it comes to some of these larger entities. So we'll make sure everything goes where it needs to go. And I appreciate everybody, actually supporting what it is that, Grindstone is trying to accomplish.
Hey, let me just touch on this too. There are a couple of other good ministries, NGOs out here, still doing good work. And I'm a huge proponent of Grindstone because I founded it. But if you don't, for whatever reason, don't like me or don't like us, that's fine. There's an organization called 8 Days of Hope, and they were founded during Katrina. And they have a bunch of really kind-hearted people out here. We've trained some of their people up on like chainsaw skills and stuff like that, because they have a bunch of people, and some of those people didn't quite have the skills that they needed to do the work that was required. But they're still out here doing stuff, not pretending to do stuff. They're doing stuff. And so if you don't like me, that's fine, man. This isn't about me. It's about this freaking storm and these people who are affected by it. Check out 8 Days of Hope. And then Sheepdog was another one that's been out here. They're still getting stuff done too. I'm not going to badmouth anybody. You and me will talk off camera. But there's a group that rhymes with Shreem Rubicon. And those guys, negative. Negative. That's all I'm going to say. Negative. Shreem Rubicon is not a good negative. No.
Well, and and that's just is what it is. People have to figure some of those things out on their own sometimes. So
look great in the truck, but you got to get out of the truck and do stuff.
Yeah. I brought a truck. So what else can I do, right?
I'm gonna take a really good Instagram picture. That's what I'm gonna do. So,
nailed it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we see that trend pretty often when people give out, something to a homeless person and just happen to have the chance to take a photo while doing it. Such just a spontaneous moment,
Well, look, let's touch on that elephant in the room. Do you know how weird it is for me to like come out here and do good works because the Father has convicted me to do it, and then like have to talk about it and document it all the time?
Yeah.
But if I don't talk about it and document it, then we don't get into a position to be able to do these things. And like, it's a real kind of catch 22 for me, because, you know, we're told biblically, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Like, okay, roger that. But I also feel on the flip side of that, somebody's got to be the mouthpiece for this stuff, because I'm not in a position, I'm not independently wealthy. I can't just come out here and do this on my own. Although that's how Grindstone started. We just came out here and just started doing stuff. And so many people wanted to join what we had going on that this thing has grown exponentially in the last 33 months. But it is like, I don't ever want to beg anybody for anything. And I'm not begging now. It's just, if the Father convicts you to donate or pray or come see us on site or pour into somebody else, awesome. So be it. But it is kind of a strange facet of my life, to where, like, not only do we go do this stuff all day, but then to also, like, in the evening sit here and talk about, hey, look at me, all the cool stuff we did. And it's like, no, man, we didn't, like, first of all, it's not me that's doing it. We have a bunch of badass volunteers. And then second of all, it's all the hand of the Father anyway. So, but yeah, it's the duality of man, I guess. Am I getting too philosophical here? I'll shut up.
No. I mean, it makes sense. Like you said, if you can't put the information out there, then there's no way for anyone to know that there's something to support, right? So some of that has to be done in order to, you know, gather the support needed in order to keep the mission moving forward. But like I said, you know, we also can differentiate between those who are just doing it for clout, right? And that's a big thing you see nowadays, especially with like the celebrity class. You know, they bought a Subway sandwich for a homeless guy and they post about it, but somehow they haven't donated any money to anything, even though they're a millionaire. So, and that, you know, whatever, people do whatever they want with their own money, but there is just that level of audacity, I guess I would call it. So, yeah. So, you know, one thing, you know, to kind of also talk about the preparedness aspect of some of the things that you experience while on site and trying to help some people is, during these desperate times with people displaced and, you know, like you said, basically it's a grid down situation. Do you find that there ever is scenarios where you find yourself maybe in like a more dangerous situation, or like, do you find like the threat level is relatively high maybe?
For sure. In Duloc, Louisiana, which was the last deployment we did before this one, people were getting shot over 5-gallon gas cans.
Wow. Straight
up, $20 worth of gas, or, well, I don't know, $83 worth of gas now, you know, people losing their lives. And so that happens all the time. In Panama City, Florida, we controlled a square city block. That was our FOB, our forward operating base. And and by the way, 5 months after the storm, we're the only ones in that area with food, water, and electricity, because we brought our own. And so we regularly post security teams around the clock. Now, the county that we're in currently, in Western Kentucky, Marshall County, the first responders here in law enforcement have done just an absolute bang-up job. I mean, I'm in a volunteer fire department right now. Like, there's their crest up on the wall, right? They're like, hey, you guys are cool. You do cool stuff. You want to live here? I was like, hell yeah, sounds awesome. But the sheriffs and the local PD around here has done a real good job at keeping people peaceable. But that's not, generally speaking, the case. It happens all the time, and so we establish a watch, and we're not loud and proud about it. There's not dudes in plate carriers and ARs standing out front of the building, because that's really bad at building rapport. Right? And that's what we're here to do. We're here to help people, not hard point this freaking destroyed city block. But you're also not going to take anything from me. You're not going to harm my people. And so there's a line to walk there. And so you want to be known as, and we oftentimes are known as, those really nice people over there you totally shouldn't F with. And that's a great reputation to have. But yeah, security is an absolutely primary concern. And what you do there is you identify every role that you think that you need, and you multiply it times 3. That's how many people you need to do that. And so that gets back to numbers, which is one of those things with preparedness that scares people. because most people, even if they want to be in a group, they don't have a group. And sooner
Right.
or later, you got to sleep.
No, that makes sense. And it's something I think a lot of people might not consider. They know that in a disaster scenario that there's likely to be, a spike in crime and more dangerous situations that could arise. But when you're talking about, everyone else in the country is still fine and comfortable, but then that one location has experienced a disaster, I don't think a lot of people imagine it being that chaotic so quickly, even though the rest of the world is still comfortable. You know what I mean? So that's interesting, and it's something for people to keep in mind. Like, I know a lot of you are interested in possibly volunteering, and I posted in the chat, it's admin@bearindependent.com if anyone's interested, right? Just send an email, I assume.
Yep.
Okay, so and that's how you would link up, but these are also things you should keep in mind. Like, you might be there with all the right intentions, but you have to make sure you're aware of the fact that there are risks involved. Not everything is just sunshine and rainbows, right?
Oh, it's not. Like, our job is to bring the sunshine and rainbows back.
Right.
It's a freaking mess when we get here, right? And that again gets back to, like, where else can you do awesome stuff? Where else can you do awesome stuff to be a blessing to other people while essentially doing a field training exercise in a real world austere environment that simulates the type of thing that you're prepping for in the first place? Like, it's a win-win-win, bro.
Yeah. And that being said, I'm sure then, through your experiences, most of what you're doing is hard work, manual labor versus all of the other conversations we like to have in the preparedness community, right?
So the thing with that is, I honestly think one of the huge downfalls of the preparedness community is the prepper attitude in general. I'm going to buy a bunch of shit, put it on a shelf, and call it good. Right. It doesn't matter if you don't know how to use that stuff. It's non-existent. Like, if you don't know how to use your rifle, you don't have a rifle. You don't know how to use your pistol, you don't have a pistol. So it's that same mentality of, I'm just going to stockpile stuff. Well, the materials go along with the skill set, heart set, mindset to be able to use that stuff that makes it valuable in the first place. And so in order to know how to use that stuff, you have to go do. This is a huge overarching theme at Bear Independent. You go do the things. Go do the things. Go travel, even if it's into your backyard, if it's the nearest state park, I don't care. Go somewhere outside of your living room or your basement or your mom's house or your job. Go somewhere and go do the things. Well, when world ends, I'm going to use this super high speed little mini Bunsen burner camp stove thing that I'm going to brew my coffee in, and it's going to be great. Awesome. Go do that in the snow. You know what happens when you set that thing up? The wind's blowing, and so your flame's barely going as it is, and then the snow starts to melt, and then it falls over, and then it goes out, and you can't relight it because you just dumped your freaking stove into the snow. And now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Hadn't thought about that. Right. And all those things. And so skills go with you everywhere. Experience sticks forever. Gear is just stuff. Like, I don't need a Glock if I want to take you out. I can use this freaking wrench if we're like this close, right? Yeah. And I don't need like a wrench fighting school. I'm not a 3rd degree wrench black belt. It's just, they're just skills, right? So there's a huge lack of interest in training and doing in the prepper community, and I rail against that every chance I get, because I don't know a more valuable way to actually gain expertise than to go and make mistakes now while you can. Learn from those mistakes now while you can, because if the balloon goes up, man, if it's the big one, you're really going to try and figure all this stuff out on the worst day of your life? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
That's a good point. And I do want to say thanks to Marfugal TV for another super chat. So they're just rolling in tonight, and that's awesome. So, and I'm hoping, hopefully this is going to definitely help some people out there. And I know, one thing I'll hear at some point people will talk about is like, well, there's also these wildfires in Colorado and stuff like that happening. And it's like every day, everywhere there is a crisis, and you can only be at one place at a time, right? So of course, I'm sure people are going to be helping out there as well. But the people in Kentucky, and something a lot of people don't realize, are going to be affected by this for a very, very long time. And, these disasters don't just magically clean up and suddenly go away once everybody leaves. Like you said, when FEMA or any of the federal agencies decide to dip out, there's still a lot of work to do. And I think that that's something that we lose track of because the media stops talking about it, basically.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they barely talked about it when it happened. And to the extent that they did talk about it, it was when Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. came and toured Mayfield while he was here, which was an absolute pain in the ass because work had to stop all over the place because the entire place became a non-permissive environment because they had to shut it down because the commander-in-chief was coming to tour the damage. Dude, just stay home. Eat ice cream at home. Like, you're not going to help anything when you come here. So, but anyway, yeah, the work is ongoing and it doesn't just happen overnight. And FEMA, to the extent that they do anything, and frankly, they don't do much. The first 30 days after a storm, they are fairly, I wouldn't say they're good, but that's when they're most active at reimbursing. After that, frankly, you're on your own. If you didn't have insurance and you didn't have savings, you're screwed. And those are the kinds of people that we look for with Grindstone. And so at about the 1 month mark, we go from relief to recovery. I don't remember if we already talked about that because I'm smoked. But we go from relief to recovery, and recovery is when we start rebuilding all the things that were demolished in the first place. And that takes time. You don't just build a house overnight. You don't build a house in a month. So that's the phase that we're entering into now. That's why we're, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I think that's a good point for us to kind of drive, is that getting people back into a form of shelter is actually one of your main drivers, right? I mean, that's what these people really need at the end of the day when everything's said and done, right?
Yep. And then in doing so, if we can do that in a way that, and we do, that doesn't put them in debt and doesn't behold them to a bank, they're even better. Like, it's just a blessing. Here you go. Now you have a house, right? That's even more of a blessing. It's a leg up on their life to take something that would have been an absolute tragedy and turn it into a blessing for somebody, Right. So it's, I guess in the big picture, we're just out here just making lots of lemonade out of lemons, but there's freaking lemons everywhere. People need places to live, and we think like we have this undue comfort in our homes. I'm good. I'm at home. I'm good. Nothing bad's going to happen. Yeah. Unless, wind picks your home up and throws it in the lake. This right. One lake over here, they pulled 30 bodies. Search and rescue pulled 30 bodies out of this lake over here. And it wasn't just like all $1 million lake homes. I mean, you're talking retirees, veterans. There's these little shacks in between these multi-million-dollar homes, and these little shacks are the people we're seeing now. They need help, and so trying to restore the sovereignty of that house, right? And it's work, dude.
Well, I guess I think that's a plague in many ways that people share, in the sense of that comfort of being at home and not having something happen to them. It's definitely a common thought process, right? Like, well, it'll never happen here because of X, Y, and Z. And, I don't operate that way, and I don't suggest anybody operate that way. But one of our concerns here is tornadoes, and I don't have like a legitimate shelter for a tornado if one were to occur. So seeing things like what happened in Kentucky, where, that's not a common occurrence for them to experience something like that, is a reminder of why, like, I need to move forward and invest and make sure I have a formidable shelter in case something was to happen. And it doesn't matter if it ever happens. It just means that, I should assume it can.
Hey, use it as a root cellar when there's no tornadoes, because I mean, I'm in the same boat. I don't have a storm shelter, and I live in Oklahoma. Oklahoma is just like regularly getting whacked by tornadoes.
Yeah.
After this deployment, I fully intend to go home and figure out something because I mean, I've just seen too much out here over the last, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 weeks. I fully intend to have a storm shelter at my house because, yeah, what else do you do? You know, and it's the craziest thing talking with these people out here who have got nothing. They're standing on a bare concrete slab where their house used to be with only the clothes on their back. And you're like, hey, man, what do you need? Are you okay? And they're like, yeah, we're good. And I'm like, what do you mean you're good? It's like, I'm alive. My wife's alive. My kids are alive. We're good. You should go check on them over there. They lost somebody. They might need help. I'm like, dude, you have nothing other than, you know, and I'm not taking away from the value of your family, but we have this American consumerism concept of all my stuff, this prepper concept of all my stuff. And they're like, no, I'm just happy to be alive. And that's an incredible juxtaposition, you know. And so I certainly intend to put a shelter together that will house all the people that I love. Hopefully there's something left when we come up out of the dirt like mole people after the storm. But if, but if not, I'm cool with that. We have the people that we love. So
yeah, I mean, and it's important, you know, and I can't just assume that I'm not going to need it ever. And that's
and here's the other thing. Everybody is prepping for the solar flare and the EMP in North Korea and China and Ukraine. And did you see what the Indo-Pacific region, what they've got going on? And blah, 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 blah. The next Carrington event. It's like, dude, this shit actually happens all the time. Like, it actually happens all the time. But it's not sexy, so people don't want to prep for it. It's like, yeah, but if you look at preparedness as mitigating risk, right? Physical insurance. These things happen. Like the last Carrington event was 1852, right? Okay, we're overdue for one. Roger that. Roughly every 100 to 200 years. Got it. Could happen. Probably will happen. In the meanwhile, you know what could happen? A hurricane, a tornado, an earthquake, an ice storm, a car wreck, right? Like, but it's not sexy. You don't get 1 million clicks on a video if you're like, driving is the most dangerous thing you do. You should have a first aid kit and a defensive driving class. People are like, dude, shut up. I want some fear porn. I want to feel good today about all this shit I put on myself, you know? So
and you're right. You know, the things that are actually happening right now is priority. You know, and I think that we lose track of that sometimes, you know, and I'm guilty of it as well, just because, you know, it's like I should probably spend more money on securing my home against a possible intruder, but instead I'm like over here buying another red dot site because, you know, I need that more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and you know, and when I do those things to myself, I at least recognize it. I'm like, what am I doing? But I think it's something that we have to have that self-reflection in order to fix, you know? So I know that Grindstone, you know, is really big when it comes to disaster relief and helping out, you know, our fellow human beings, right? So there's another side of the project that you guys work on when it comes to taking care of victims of some of the worst crimes, right? And I wondered if you wanted to touch on that too, to kind of let people know that there's that other side of your mission that that really, you know, keeps you guys motivated and moving, you know?
Sure. So thank you for bringing that up. When we're not out here in Western Kentucky or wherever else we go doing this kind of stuff, we are building Caleb House. Caleb House is a rescue and rehabilitation facility for juvenile human trafficking survivors. That's a bunch of big words to say. It's for kids that have been rescued who were sold by scumbags as sex slaves.
Yeah.
And that shit pisses me off, and I want to kill all of those people. Yeah. But in the meanwhile, we end up with these children, because that's what they are. They're children that need a place to go that's safe, right? And that we can meet their mental, emotional, physical, educational, spiritual, financial needs. It's the 6 facets. That was actually developed by a lady named Kristen Weiss at Bethany House, who we had the honor of working with a couple years ago when we first became convicted to get into anti-human trafficking. And so we're building Bethany House, and it's in eastern Oklahoma. I can't tell you where. Bethany House and trafficking, anti-trafficking in general, is regulated by DHS, Department of Homeland Security.
Okay.
And because the cartel treats these children like product, and they don't like it when you steal their product from them. There was an absolute piece of shit from the Semicola cartel who said that children are the new heroin because I can sell a bag of heroin one time, but I can sell a 5-year-old 10 times a day for 10 years before they're used up. So we think that's disgusting and terrible. And when we're not doing this, that's what we're doing. So we're building Caleb House. We've bought the land for Caleb House. We have our plans submitted to the Department of Homeland Security for approval. We've got those same plans. We're doing what's called takeoffs right now because Grindstone is a construction ministry. We're partnered with like 200 plus small businesses and agencies and organizations and individuals all across North America that when we need to build cool stuff, they show up and we build cool stuff. We're doing takeoffs right now, which is like, you need this many 2x4s and this many nails, and that figuring all that out so that we can then fundraise with an accurate number as to what the cost is going to be to build that facility, while simultaneously building the team that's going to be operating that facility once it's operational. And we're talking about, in some cases, children that are as young as infants that are recovered during these rescue operations. And a lot of the other ministries out there that do this work, it's like a 1-year program or an 18-month program. I really don't like that, because how do you tell a 5-year-old, sorry, Jimmy, year's up, best of luck,
right,
to go back to the world? So what we intend to provide a home for these children with house parents, with parents, until they're legally adults. And for as long as they'd like to be there, they can be there, to give them a home, to bring some. We like the house parents model. We learned that from some friends of ours at another ministry. And it's a house with children in it, and it's a house that's filled with love. And in addition to that, we have the professional side of it with physical therapists and with doctors and with talk therapy and potentially EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprogramming, and all this stuff to help these kids unpack that. And so we were really inspired by Bethany House. It was a real blessing to be on site there and to become aware of this. There's 420 beds in the United States for trafficking victims. 420 total in the entire United States.
Yeah.
It is a $150 billion, with a B, $billion per year industry. That is more than the NBA, Starbucks, and Target earns in a year, every year in the United States. And we are the worst offenders by far.
420 beds is all they have.
And we're combating that with 420 beds. And so I want to be the Mickey D's of restoration facilities. I want to work myself out of a job. We're going to build Caleb House, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one, until we have destroyed human trafficking and dealt with all the scumbags and rehabilitated all of the children, and it is no longer a need. So, yeah, that's what's up with that.
Well, and I appreciate you explaining all that. I think that, having a mission like that, one that you can continually work on and, put effort towards, shows people like another reason why supporting Grindstone Ministries goes further than just, the immediate disaster that might have just struck, And I think that particular topic and the people who have been victimized by that entire, I guess you would call it, criminal activity or business or whatever you want to call it. I mean, all of us can agree that that is a terrible thing that we don't want within our society. And obviously, if you don't agree with that, then you don't need to be here. But what I mean, but
If you don't agree with that, I got a hollow point for your forehead. I'll just
yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things where we have to remember that things like that exist now. Things like that are happening now, and people are being victimized every single minute of every hour right now. And then for people to assume that in some kind of a large scale crisis scenario that people won't act a certain way or be violent or the need for self-defense won't exist is just, it's naive to a very high degree, I would assume.
That's why I think we all need to be as strong as possible now, because I honestly believe the system as we know it is going to continue its slow decline. I think we're circling the drain, and that may accelerate as we continue to circle the drain, much like a turd does. As it gets closer and closer, that's us. We're the turd, which is unfortunate. I love the United States of America. I'm incredibly thankful for it and the opportunities that I've had here. But I think you'd have to be willfully ignorant at this point to ignore the trajectory that we're on as a country. And I think that's by design. And I don't think that there's anything that us little people can do about it other than be as strong in our own homes and our own communities as possible. And a lot of that is preparedness. I mean, and again, we think of preparedness as putting stuff on a shelf, but this county that we're in did not have an emergency preparedness plan. And their primary building that they would use for emergency operations was destroyed. They didn't even know where they were going to go after that. They didn't have a plan put together. Guess what they're working on now? A plan for if it ever happens again. And so it's kind of like, well, I've got a bug out bag, but I don't have a bug out plan. The bag doesn't matter if you don't know where you're going with it and if you don't know how to use it, right? And so preparedness is not just an individual thing. It's a community thing, and not just a community of like-minded folks in the neighborhood, but at the city level, at the county level, hell, at the state level. There's a reason that resources are stockpiled in warehouses in case something bad happens. We're supposed to have storehouses as well. So I think as society continues to slide into the abyss, resources are going to tighten up. There will be less public safety. There will be less EMS, less firefighters, fewer police officers. And things are going to there's going to be a greater divide between the people that are good, high quality people who behave and the people who are low quality people that don't. And there's going to be fewer people standing in the gap in between the good people and the bad people. That means you need to be as strong as possible. Be as trained up as possible, be as physically fit and healthy as possible, have the most understanding of your equipment as possible, and learn to act, not to hesitate, because nobody's coming to save you. It's you. Like, let's be frank. When the world ends, Grindstone's not deploying to come save you. I'll have my own stuff to take care of. The only reason I can do this now is because I'm strong at home. Right. If I wasn't strong at home, I couldn't come here to do this. So I think we all really need to be strong in our own home and our own communities to be a blessing now. And again, get the reps in now while we can, while there's still a safety net, because when things go truly bad, you don't want to be making mistakes on the first day of the end of the world as we know it, right? There's those people are just supporting characters in the apocalypse fiction books. You don't want to be that guy.
No, and one thing that the situation in Kentucky can kind of remind you of is that you might have a very strong, well put together community with the ability to produce your own food and have your own water source and have everything you would need to survive a complete collapse scenario, and something can come through and literally wipe it all off the face of the earth in an instant.
Each one of these neighborhoods that we were in, Cambridge Shores is a neighborhood right up the road here. It is utterly destroyed. The storm was on the ground for 30 seconds. 30 seconds. And it is utterly, as far as the eye can see in every direction, 30 seconds. It's that fast, less than a minute. So
that's, And I do want to say, that we're coming up on an hour, and I know we're going to try to wrap things up because I know you and your crew are zonked, right? You guys have been working hard for weeks now, and I'm sure it's a lot more physically exhausting than what you're even showing right now. But for everybody who donated tonight, like, thank you so much for that. And whether or not you went direct link or through the super chat, all the money's going to end up in the right place. I think that, if anything, now you're at least aware of another effort behind a ministry that's out there physically making things happen and changing people's lives. And even if it's not about disaster relief, we know they're helping victims that can't help themselves, no matter what time of year or what type of disaster or what type of event is happening. So I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. I did want to go ahead and just do, a shameless plug for you guys, though, too, with the Refuge Medical, because I honestly think that if you're looking for high quality first aid gear, you really can't do better. You can't. And Refuge Medical is a company started by Bear Independent, and that's the Adventure 2.0 kit, right? And that thing is
it is. Good job. Good job.
Yeah. Well, I may or may not have one. But one thing I will say is that when it comes to first aid, if you skimp out on it, then it's going to fail you when you need it the most. And what they provide there at Refuge Medical is huge. And if you use my code MAGIC, you guys get 10% off, which is awesome. But the other thing to keep in mind is that still supports an American company that helps support a group of people who are out there helping other people. It's not just about a company trying to make money off first aid supplies. You got a group of people who are trying to save lives with their product and actually out there helping people's lives recover from disaster simultaneously. And that's just something I try to keep in mind too. It's not just about a product always. And I think that's where things can get convoluted sometimes. So I wanted to mention that and to remind everybody that those discounts were available, because you really shouldn't play around with first aid.
We've used a lot of it since we've been here. I used a stomp bag to help fix the guy's busted leg on a different job site. There's been a lot of it. And that's the thing, you never know when you're going to need it. So I appreciate that very much. We're very proud of the products and the track record at Refuge. 29 lives saved to date. That's 100% badass. And multiple dozens of aid opportunities that aid has been rendered using our kits. And yeah, life's dangerous. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But if you mess that part up, you want the best first aid kit that money can buy, and that's Refuge, man. That's what we do. So,
yeah,
comparably priced too. So
yeah, and I know a lot of people feel that it's expensive, but you get what you pay for, and I think like you said, a big consideration for people is that in a SHTF scenario, in a disaster scenario, when you're out working with a chainsaw trying to remove debris from your property, that's when you're going to get hurt. That's when you're going to need immediate first aid. And a lot of people think about the idea of, self-defense or a conflict being the reason behind it. But in reality, your basic chore is going to be the thing that you're going to need that tourniquet for, or something like that. We see those things happen all the time, every single day, but we don't think of them in that same facet because you can call 911, right?
Well, and the reason that Adventure 2.0 is in here is not for shameless plugs of Refuge. It's because this fire department that we're at, our kits, Refuge Medical's kits, are significantly better than what they had. And so as a thank you to this department for hosting us, we are giving them kits, including Adventure 2.0s and Max. And I'm not saying that for promotional reasons. I'm saying that because we have this concept as Americans that once help arrives, it'll be okay. Dude, we outfit ambulances. We outfit paramedics. We outfit firefighters. We outfit law enforcement. We know what most of them are rolling around with, and it is utter garbage. They don't have enough stuff. And so when we show them our kits, most of them are like trying to wipe the drool off their face real quick before they form a sentence. They're like, that's awesome. How do I get one of those? And it's like, they're beholden to a city council to fund it. Most of the rest of us can just save up a few paychecks and get one without asking permission. And so we have to break out of that mindset of like, we are the first responder, right? I'm the one who's immediately responsible for everything around me, and then circles upon circles upon circles. So
yeah, something I think we can start referencing. Those basic boo first aid kits you get at your sporting goods store is like peace of mind kits, because that's really the only reason that they're there, to give people the false illusion that they're going to be able to take care of themselves during an emergency. And that's just part of the deal. We all have to invest in the idea that we are our own saviors. We're not going to be taken care of at the end of the day. And something that you witnessed firsthand doing what you do in disaster relief is people not being taken care of.
Yep.
So, well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We hit the hour mark, had a really good turnout, had a really excellent, turnout in the sense of donations. And once again, thank you all so much for doing that. This is part of the preparedness community too. Like, we should come together when we can to try to help support other people. And one thing, when I do my Marauder Mondays live stream, right, the whole idea behind that is kind of like, one more person, helped, or, one more person prepared is one less person we have to worry about after the fact. And I think that, sometimes we have to actually put that into action rather than just talking about it, right?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, man. And thank you to everybody in the chat and everybody who donated. And, how cool would it be down the road if Grindstone is like that group of preppers or group of people doing good stuff that becomes known regionally or nationally as all those crazy prepper people that just show up to help.
Right.
It's like the Amish have their crew and the Jehovah's Witnesses have their crew and the Baptists have their crew. And it's like, oh man, those Grindstone guys, you mean the guys with the shovels and the plate carriers? Yeah, those are the Grindstone guys. So yeah, I think that's super cool, man. And again, thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to have a chat with you.
Yeah, and I did see someone in the chat mention that we might have to have a jam session at some point. So that should probably be the next collaboration.
Bring it, bro. I'm down.
Rhythm section all day. We don't even need a guitar. All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here. Thank you so much for all the donations and support. And I will see you guys next time. And as I always do, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper and Bear Independent.